Thanks for listening to the Music Production Podcast. I'd like to tell you about the Music Production Club, which is a subscription-based service that I offer through my website, brianfunk.com, that gets you new downloads for your music production needs, especially for Ableton Live users, every month. This month, you get the updated 16-bit Ableton Live pack, which contains 150 instrument racks made with the Sega Genesis YM2612 FM chip, as well as the other sound chip it has, and the Mega FM by Twisted Electrons, which is a synthesizer that uses two YM2612 FM synth chips. This is an awesome collection if you're into that 16-bit video game sound. And to further that video game theme this month, I'm offering the Super 8-bit Ableton Live Pack, which has 150 sounds made with the Nintendo Entertainment System and Nintendo Game Boy sound chips. For creating video game music, this is such a great set of tools. And on top of that, I'm giving the Coin-Op Ableton Live 8-bit template, which is a live set that's set up with tracks and parameters and effects that you can instantly start making authentic 8-bit music. So if you're into video game music, October 2020 is the month for you to be in the Music Production Club, because you're going to get a ton of video game tools. And these sounds are great to add into any kinds of music, but if you want to make really legit sounding video game music, this is the best way to do it. It's the sound of these chips sampled and put into Ableton Live. So check it out. Join the Music Production Club. It's brianfunk.com/MPC. Thanks. How's it going? And welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. And on today's episode, Tommy Zee is back. Tommy Zee was on episode, a while ago, 122, just over a year ago. And I think this is going to be 188 if everything goes to plan. So it's been a little while since we've seen each other, but in the meantime, Tommy and I have kept in touch. We've done a few video calls just for the hell of it, just to see how we're all doing. And we keep saying like we should have been recording those. And Tommy, in case you aren't familiar with him, runs Making Music for Brands, where he uses his experience in making music for different brands, whether it's TV commercials or all kinds of things, really, I guess. And you've got a team of people working with you as well. So Tommy knows a thing or two about getting music out to commercial brands. And he's also sharing that information. He's got a masterclass, which is really an incredible class. It's a great resource, and it kind of takes you from start to finish. Like, even just if you're really just getting into music production and you're not even sure what gear to use, we start there, and it goes on, and it's very well laid out. I learned a ton through it. Tommy, I'm glad to see you again, man. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, really good to see you, brother. Hope everything is well in New York City.
Yeah.
In this strange time.
Yeah, I'm about an hour outside New York City on Long Island, and I haven't been there in a long time. My wife was there recently, and she said it's like a ghost town. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I've seen the footage of guys like driving, recording on their cell phone, and like through Manhattan, like everything boarded up. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the world
weird.
the world is a strange place, these days. But in a way, I count myself lucky because my life and work takes place in my studio, and I feel like this is maybe why this academy that I started really promoting this year, because it opened doors last year, but we really pushed it this year in April, starting in April. It's like you couldn't pick a better time, for it, because the main premise is, how can you make a living making music today right from your home studio?
Yeah.
And you look at all the options, and what wasn't true last year is now true, which is that people who perform for a living suddenly found themselves out of a gig. Like, performing musicians suddenly got their tours canceled, shows canceled, even guys who perform in restaurants on weekends.
Yeah.
Nope, no more.
Well,
So I feel like we came, just at the right time because, for the past 15 years, or me anyway, I've been in the business 15 years. We've always worked remotely. We never see the composers that we work with. They're always in their home studio. And everything that we do is done remotely. And, that's beautiful because you don't have to leave your home studio. All you need is just to make magic come out of the speakers, and everything can be sent over. We have the WeTransfers, we have the Google Drives, we have the Dropboxes, and yeah. So it's been, I think, an eye opener for a lot of people. Um, and I knew this. I knew that it would be. Why? Because when I was getting into this business, I got into it like most musicians do by mistake, like not by mistake, but by accident.
mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know any programs officially, and there certainly weren't any for a freelance composer who wants to compose music for commercials. You had these media programs, you had these like radio and television programs, but nothing that specifically talks about like, making music for ads. So when I discovered this world, like it was the first time that I thought, oh man, this is like something that I could literally turn into a full-time job, and it was so strange to me that I didn't even know. I never connected those things, the ads, music,
Yeah.
who's making them, and a lot of musicians don't. So that's how we promote the masterclass, by basically having this sort of eye-opening session. Like, do you realize that this exists, that there are guys and girls sitting in their home studio right now, and all they do is make music for ads to make money? Of course, they might do other things. They might have artistic careers. They might have other projects, but like a lot of their income actually comes from creating demos for campaigns in our industry. So yeah. So I feel like this is a better time than ever, actually, to talk about this way of making a living with music, not having to tour, not having to count on your streaming royalties, which I don't know if you've ever seen what those look like, but
What are those?
yeah, streaming royalties.
Wait, what?
There are those things
Yeah.
that are deeply hidden behind all the zeros and commas. No, I mean, unless you're,
Right.
somebody who's in this limelight already,
Mm-hmm.
it's really rare for a musician to actually be able to make a decent living from streaming royalties, unfortunately. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of streaming royalties to make minimum wage.
Yeah.
On a monthly basis. That's the kind of level you have to maintain. So that's not easy either. And yeah, tours are being canceled, which is terrible for a lot of musicians. And what else do you have left? Do you want to sell your music? I mean, people are streaming it for free. So
Yeah.
why would people buy your music? I'm not saying music isn't sold. There's still people buying vinyl records and all sorts of things. But generally speaking, I would say that you're going to find it difficult to try to sell something for pennies to people who are already streaming it for free. So we're out there, I guess. And this is still a way that I support my family, creating commissioned pieces of music for various advertising agencies around the world, or film directors or brands. And yeah, and running this masterclass, which has been an eye-opener for me. We now have, when I was talking to you, I think in the last interview, there was just an idea. Like,
Yeah.
I want to do this thing. I think that's where the point I was at. And actually, from our interview, I had a lot of people interested, saying, yeah, I want to learn this. And so I actually started a masterclass by asking the people who came from your interview and a few other interviews, would you be willing to invest in something like this? And when they put their credit card down, I was like, holy shit, this is real. Like, I actually have to teach them something. I have to make something. So I got so terrified that people gave me their money that I was like, because when you deal with brands, I mean, it's like you don't have that there's not that sensitivity.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sending an invoice to another company for a lot of money, and I don't feel bad that I'm charging a lot of money for doing a Google commercial. I'm sure Google will be fine.
Yeah.
But when I have people sending me emails saying, okay, so I basically took my social assistance check and spent it on your masterclass, it becomes a little bit different, It's like, oh, yeah.
It's
I
straight
kind
out
of
of someone's
felt
pocket there.
it's straight. Yeah, I felt, it was a weird feeling for me for like 15 years just dealing with production companies or agencies and invoicing them. And now I'm dealing with individual humans.
Mm-hmm.
So it was scary. And that fear, like, I think if you channel it right, it can turn into something great, because I really wanted to deliver everything I know, like as pragmatically, as detailed, as practical as possible. And that's why I also, unlike a lot of masterclasses, I actually offer my mentorship to people who are in my masterclass. So we have homework assignments, and I'm like, you send them to me, I'm going to review them. I'm going to tell you what's working, what's not working. Like you said, we take people step by step. So it's like, how do you build a website that will appeal to people in our business who make decisions who to hire to compose the music? So I show them, okay, this is how you build a website that's going to get attention and that will maximize your chance of reply. How do you build a portfolio of music when you've never done a commercial before, but you may be talented enough to do so? We explain that, and you get feedback on everything, and then you go out there in the world. We also provide our students with the directory of music production companies. We even show them how to write emails. So it's like, there really isn't anything that we're holding back there. It's all there. And now it's about that time when people are graduating, and I'm starting to hear success stories. Like, I'm starting to hear about guys and girls who are getting their first gigs in the industry. And that's such a great feeling for me,
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, because after 15 years of doing, everything from toilet paper to Nike commercials, it's like I'm doing it for money, but I can't say honestly that I'm really feeling motivated when you're doing like 857th commercial for a car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll take it. It's good money, but I also want to feel fulfilled. And I feel like I'm just realizing my mission as a human being by doing what I do well, which is teaching, passing on my knowledge, being a mentor. These are things I really enjoy doing, And man, it feels so much better when I get an email saying, I got my first job, and like, I've never had a paycheck like this before from music, Imagine how that feels, compared to scoring a toilet paper commercial, which pays you a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's like, I know people who don't make money with music will be like, oh, I don't care. I would be in heaven if I was making great money doing music for toilet paper commercials. But the fact is, like, once you're okay and you do it for a few years, your soul starts knocking on your door again, going, so is this all we're going to do? Like, toilet paper commercials for till the end of our life, and just keep getting paid, and that's it, So yeah, man, it's been really rewarding, and I'm really glad I did that. And actually, I feel like if I was to do another masterclass, I would teach people how to teach online. Like, any musician who has any kind of talent that is, above average, really consider putting yourself out there online, reaching people internationally at scale, the incredible opportunity we have today to reach people in every freaking corner of the world just by like putting your message out there and sharing your personality at scale. It's like, look at this. We're having a conversation right now, and there are multiple people that will benefit from this conversation. We only gonna spend an hour talking, but that 1 hour spent talking is gonna be pinging people all over the world and having its own consequences. So, I feel like at this time when we're locked down, we can't tour, we can't get out of our house, really consider this as one of your projects. I mean, Brian, you're an inspiration to me, dude, because you've been doing this for a long time. I remember you with your sunglasses, with like when I got my Ableton. You were one of the few guys. Like, where else would you get any information on Ableton?
Well, there's some people doing it, but you're really very correct in like you saying, like, if you have anything to offer, you probably have more to offer than you believe. Because for me, when I started, I didn't really know that much about using Ableton Live. I was relatively new in it. I'd been using things like Logic and other stuff beforehand, and I was very excited about creating instruments in Ableton Live. So that was the thing I was learning, and I started sharing that. And it was surprising to me that people thought I knew anything about it, but because I kept at it and kept learning, now I know the thing inside and out. But it was pretty awesome to be like, wow, this is helping people. This is not just for me or just, I mean, it is amazing if you can ever make any sort of financial gains doing music, doing something you love, whatever it is. That's pretty awesome. But I think, like you said, there is a point where like you start thinking like a little bit bigger, like, what am I contributing? And I think there's really no deeper satisfaction than your work helping other people improve their lives and get further into their dreams. One of the greatest rewards is probably similar to you getting someone say they got a placement. For me, it's listen to this song I made with your sound, or the email about the podcast helped me do this or made me decide to do that. Like, yeah, it's hard to really wrap your head around it, because I think us humans are kind of evolved to just deal in small clusters of people. But to potentially reach people all over the world it's
mind-boggling.
It's unbelievable. And nowadays with the music industry had changed so much in the last few years, as it was, where you couldn't rely on your album sales and your music sales, so you had to tour, and that was where so many people were making their money. And now that's taken out, and it's devastated people. But a lot of people have pivoted too and made adjustments, and we see that now. There's a ton of new characters I'm following on the internet since everything kind of changed in the spring, and it's that old thing. There's always opportunity in everything that happens, good or bad.
You just have to kind of switch your mindset up and not be.
You can't fight
thinking,
it. Because it's what it is.
It's what it is. It's a reinvention, and like the people who can't hack the reinvention will become irrelevant. It's sad to say. Your music could be remarkable, but making music is just one aspect of the whole picture. And I feel like musicians need to learn what they call in like Silicon Valley and all these like entrepreneurial circles as the full stack, which means that you have skill sets in various areas that basically combine into a full stack. So let's say you have your production skills, you have your mixing skills, you have your communication skills, you have your interweb skills. It's like, unless you have that, unless you train yourself up on, okay, how do I reach people at scale today with my message, with my music? no matter how good your mixing or production is, it's limited by your ability to share it in a way that's going to actually be seen and heard by other people. So unless you develop those skills, you're going to have to find someone else who can do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And being dependent on other people is always going to be a huge limitation. Huge limitation, because we live in the world of speed. You know, I almost feel like we just don't process anything like we used to. Back in the day, we used to process albums differently. I mean, you lived with an album. It was a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It was like a 6-month to a year at least relationship, maybe even longer.
When I was a teenager, spending every dime I had on a new record for like $15, $20, that was pretty much everything I had to my name, you know? And
yeah,
I worked my butt off to enjoy that album, you know, listen to it over and over and over. And there were a lot of times you get one and you're like, oh no, I don't like it. But you'll keep coming back to it. And some of my favorite records are those records. But yeah, we just don't have that same interaction. I find that even with gear. We were kind of talking about gear before we started recording. But it's similar too. My early pieces of gear, I learned inside and out. And even if it wasn't as good as the other options, it was just, I have to figure this out because this is what I have and this is all I can do.
That's right. Yeah.
I think things now are more like disposable. I don't like this, it's going on eBay and I'll get something else. And, you know, I downloaded the new track from whoever and it didn't strike me in 30 seconds. So I got endless supplies of other things that I can just pull up with a swipe of the thumb.
I mean, you can't break the laws of economics.
Yeah.
And a simple law of economics is the more of something that is available, the less it's worth.
Yeah.
You know, like when you had your album back in the day, there were a limited amount of copies of that album.
Yep.
So if you lent it to a friend and he returned, you know, a scratch CD or a scratch vinyl record or a mangled cassette tape, that was a real pain. You know, like it was like, I mean, when you can copy something endlessly,
yeah,
it just doesn't have the same value. So that's what I mean, is that the entire way that we experience things has changed. And so if you're a music maker, you have to understand that people live in day-tight compartments. It's almost like what happened yesterday is irrelevant. What's going to happen tomorrow? Nobody knows. So all you have is like today to be out there and to be connecting with other people with your message. So yeah, the downside is, okay, so things have changed. We process things in day-tight compartments. We don't have like a long relationship with the things we consume. But there is other pluses, you know?
sure.
The fact that 15 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago, every musician was limited by the barrier of like being able to record an album. I remember when I was 17 and I was a rapper, like, where do I record my track?
Yeah.
I had to ask my music teacher at school to let me use his studio. And when I say studio, I mean, he had like a fancy keyboard in a shed and a mic hooked up, and we recorded it on that keyboard, like everything. It was, you know,
Right.
but that was the limitation back then. You know, I kind of think back on it and I go, those were like really wonderful times when I was looking into Yellow Pages, trying to find a studio in Toronto to record, and then visiting that studio, and then like being amazed that it's in somebody's house, but it's a real studio, like hardwood floors. And I was like, I don't even know what this stuff is. And then I would be crushed when they told me it's like $400, $500 an hour.
Yeah.
How is a 16-year-old kid supposed to pay for studio time? So those were wonderful days, but they're gone now forever. Nobody can charge $500 an hour for a studio. I mean, yeah, some people can. I mean, I like to speak in extremes, but I'm sure some people can, but let's face it, a lot of studios have turned into like music production companies. So like, I was a part of one. It used to be a studio in Toronto, which recorded a bunch of albums with famous people. Like Alanis Morissette did 2 albums there. And then that studio slowly but surely started turning into, less of a recording studio, more of a music production company. And they actually went into making music for ads because that's the only way that they could actually, maintain the payroll. Like they actually had to, they couldn't rely on hourly fees from bands. So, but so those days are gone. But today, what do we have? You can wake up in the morning, you can work on a track inside of a laptop. It could be a full-blown orchestral composition that sounds like it could be in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Like literally, you could do that. By the afternoon, you could share it through your social media. You could share it with your mailing list. You could literally share a piece of content with thousands, maybe millions of people around the world. And that's something that, you couldn't conceive of 30 years ago. And I really encourage all musicians to think about this carefully. I don't care how old you are or where you are. There's like, there's no use in complaining. Just get constructive about things and get curious about things and don't resist.
I think everyone has an angle. Like everyone's got something to offer.
Everybody does.
Any level, any age, any style. That's going to be the thing that is special about you. And I think a lot of times we think of these things as our limitations and why we can't get involved, but often that's why we can. I think of this, I had this one student years ago, senior in high school, really big into collecting sneakers. Like for his speech, he brought in like 30 pairs of shoes and laid them out across the desks and was explaining what they were. And one of the like projects I had the students do at that time was to create their own blog and to write about something they cared about. And I was trying to tell him, you got to do sneakers, man. This is like obvious. And he's like, oh, I don't know though. I'm 17, what do I know? There's people out there with so much more. I'm like, that's why it matters. You're 17. Don't you think there are, like, people ask me on a regular basis, because I'm a high school teacher, so what are the kids into these days? What's cool? What's new? I get excited if I hear like a new slang at work, like say it to my wife, who somehow already knows it and laughs at me that I didn't know it 10 years ago. But it's like a thing, people care about that because of that. And there are markets out there that are interested in that, just like there are markets for any type of person out there.
Just look at the world as a high school cafeteria. Like there was rarely someone sitting by themselves in the high school cafeteria. Like no matter how weird you were or how much of an outsider you were, you always found yourself in a cluster. So we had the skateboarders, we had the hip hop, the b-boys, we had the rockers, right?
Yeah.
So this is what it is. Like literally, like when you go out there and you share your stuff with the world, no matter what it is, you're going to find other people who are like, oh, this guy is such a loser. Just like me. I love that. Let's be losers together. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I found by basically going out there this year. And instead of just being confined to my industry and relationships with these agencies and film directors, for the first time in my life, I went out there and like got vulnerable and like started posting myself, YouTube, Facebook, even doing paid advertising for the Academy, which, you collect a lot of slack for. A lot of musicians are like, paid ads. They're always suspicious. And that's okay. You should be. There's a lot of crap and scams out there. But there's also valuable stuff out there too. And, don't be thinking that just because something is a paid advertisement, it's already bad. Maybe it's a case of decent marketing. You gotta research.
Yeah.
You gotta. But I'm saying this because it was for me a matter of getting over that discomfort and the resistance of like talking about something that I made and asking people to check it out. And then like going through the comments and like sometimes seeing a negative comment saying, "Oh, this guy's a scammer," or "This is too good to be true," or whatever. You get all sorts of comments.
Yep.
Personal, there's like people getting personal. But I learned to enjoy it. It's almost like that's the price that you pay for actually doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're actually putting yourself out there, yeah, there's a risk that, people might reject you, people might criticize you publicly, but that means you're doing something.
Maybe
to me, that's
stirring up a
commendable.
reaction.
You're doing something.
Yeah.
You're doing something, and that's commendable. If you're doing nothing but commenting on other people, complaining, that's not really a constructive use of our time. Just go out there and make something. So yeah, I would say that's been a huge fascination for me. The fact that I can put something together, which is basically the knowledge about my life's work, package it up, go out there, say, "Hey guys, let me tell you about a way of making a living with music that you probably haven't heard of," because everyone's still talking about selling music or touring or whatever. And it's just been a crazy adventure, man. And I think if I do another masterclass, it will definitely be about that, like how to, synthesize what put it together in a logical, engaging, constructive sequence, and share it. It could be whatever. I mean, the niches are incredible. Like there's guys who are making six figures teaching ukulele. It's like, what? Really? Yeah, it's an incredible. It's a really interesting time we live in. Really interesting.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the niches, and I think traditional thinking is to reach the widest audience possible. But I think in our world today, you tend to benefit more by going narrower and narrower.
Yeah.
Getting like those core people that are just going to love what you do.
Yeah.
That is much more effective than just watering it down and distilling it into something that maybe more people will see but not really connect with.
Yeah. And you have to resist the thing that always happens when you go online, which is like you're always modeling yourself after other people. So you try to do things like the people that you see on the internet are doing, and sometimes that results in like your message or your personality being watered down.
Yeah.
Whereas, I feel like when internet is at its best is when it's just raw and it's just unfiltered and it's not overthought. It's like a great song. Some of the greatest songs I feel are just very raw. Basically, it's just like a truthful moment recorded in time, and it's it would be hard to repeat. Something like that.
They're often boiled down to just the essence of the song, and it's not hidden under too much other flash and
stuff. Yeah. Like we often interfere with the magic by overthinking it, by thinking too much of what are people going to think about it instead of just like being spontaneous with it. And again, it's that mindset of like, don't forget that people they don't have a relationship with music anymore. It's almost like we're listening to everything in bite-sized pieces and then we move on. It's all about today and that's it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I save a bunch of things to listen to to check out, but I rarely ever get to them.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place. Like, I got things to check out in Evernote. I got things bookmarked in my Chrome browser. I got notes. Make sure you check this out. And then I like uncover them 5 years later, and I'm like, oh my God, I was supposed to check this out. But now it's like no longer relevant. So don't overthink it, because there's a good chance, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm almost like, I don't want to say that there is no chance that whatever we make today musically is going to live. I mean, because that would be pretty, like, everybody wants to leave a bit of a legacy, right? Like, they want to create something that will live for a while, that will be timeless. But I don't know. I almost feel like we just got to create, just got to keep putting stuff out there, and, not lock yourself into this thinking that you're going to create the next greatest thing. And then, you might face disappointment when it comes out that, it came out. Some people listen to it, but like tomorrow there's other news. And here you were spending the last how many years working on this thing,
Yeah, I don't know if that can still happen, where the next great thing can even come out. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could there be another, like a Sergeant Pepper's or a Thriller or a Nevermind? I mean, the scope is just too wide, and everyone is too, everyone gets their very specific feeds and their stuff that they're into. It's not like there's this one funnel that's reaching us all. And I think a lot of great work is surely slipping through the cracks because of that. And I'm starting to think more and more too. And I think this seed was planted in my head when I got to talking to a lot of people about like AI, artificial intelligence, and computers making music. And it's like, I mean, it's probably a matter of time before like a computer is going to be making music that's indistinguishable from most people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've already heard some songs created in the style of like the Beatles or Nirvana, and you listen to it and you're like, I mean, it's close. It's
getting close.
It's getting frighteningly close. I can tell the difference still, but will I be able to? But I think like what people are connecting to more than ever is just the people behind the work.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, how many?
I had this discussion.
Sorry to finish it, but I mean, how many people are just following like YouTubers who don't really do anything? They're not like creating anything, but they're just kind of, it's their personality that is the product and the thing that people follow.
I've had this weird thesis in my head for a while now, which is like, are we bored? Are we just generally bored now of music? Because I think the interaction I had with music in the 80s, was very different, because you were hearing things for the first time. They were literally melting your brain when like digital and analog started getting together, and you were listening to like, I don't know, Peter Gabriel's Soul album. It was like melting my brain, the sonic quality of it. It was like, holy. And of course, for people who grew up in earlier times, the same thing happened. Like there was a monumental album that came out, which just broke the barriers of sound. And it was like, whoa, this,
and together, like it was doing it to everybody.
It was doing it to everybody.
Peter Gabriel or
that's right.
Van Halen.
Beatles, Van Halen, Peter Gabriel. And it was novel.
Yeah.
So it was fresh, it was new, and your brain, the collective brain of humanity, was just collectively resonating with it. And that's where the power, that's how it amplified. That's where the power came from. But today, like, we don't have anything novel anymore. I think, when we started having these, and music has been trying to blow our minds for a while. So like the best example I can give you is all the bass music. the trap, the electronic music. I was a DJ for a long time. It was designed to blow your mind, all those things. It literally has a structure of intro, drop, silence, expectation of how it's going to happen. Is it going to blow my mind? And like if you listen to Beatport, like, you know, starting, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was all about that. Drum and bass, house, speed garage. Remember that? It was all engineered to build things up and then just drop with some kind of a hook that was literally melting your insides. So I've seen this, like, I've been watching this and seeing music trying desperately to blow your mind over the past 3 decades. And the latest kind of example of that is how extreme these drops got. Like if you listen to some trap, like you're almost laughing when the actual hook drops. It's like a robot screaming at you at 15,000 watts. And you're trying to find a pattern and you can't find a damn pattern because it's like, wow, wah, wah, wah. And it's like, it's left channel, right channel. It's just basically like beating you up. It's like a huge robot just punching your brain. And to me, the intensity of that was like a symptom of music losing its power over us. And like what it has to resort to now is literally a robot.
Like insanity.
Yelling so hard at us that, you know, people at a festival, like standing in front of a 10,000 watt wall, that's what they need. That's how they need to get stimulated because they're completely numb now. Like so numb that unless it's loud, unless it's crazy, we have lost our sensitivity and our sensibility to appreciate something that may be quieter, more sublime, more subtle, more beautiful. We just miss it. It's not loud enough. So yeah, I've just been kind of thinking, I had this discussion with my wife this morning. I'm like, I think we're bored, like, of music. I said, when is the last time you listened to music? Like, when is it the last time that music was enough? That you could just like open a CD, put it in, put on your headphones, sit there on a couch, read the liner notes, just spend half an hour with the album. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I've done that. And so I feel like, and you know, it's probably because we've collectively have heard a lot basically over the decades. We've heard the Beatles, we've heard the Peter Gabriels, we've heard the Depeche Modes, we've heard the innovative drum and bass from UK, we've heard the speed garage, we've heard all these different things, you know, and it's like, what else is there? I don't know. I don't want to say that there isn't another great thing coming, but like you said, it's like, is there going to be another thing that really reinvents everything? Or have we pretty much heard what there is to hear? And now we're just going to hear variations and remixes and mashups and different styles like combining together. But essentially, we're going to be less and less enthralled by it because the novelty is just gone. You're very quickly going to get it. You're going to be like, oh, they just took a big band with drum and bass. Okay, I get it. Yeah, next. You know, it's just not the same impact anymore, you know? So I feel like the relationship has changed where the music, so for instance, a lot of people are making music now. So, because you got to wonder, like, if music is not selling, right? If people find it difficult to make a living with music, why are so many people still wanting to do music, right? And I think now it just comes down to like a personal fascination. A lot more people can make music, so they're able to do it, so they do it. And it's almost like about their relationship with the music. That's why these companies that are making gear and selling it, like boutique 500 series EQs and, you know, all these crazy rare synths and modular stuff. It's like really at a point when, people find it harder and harder to make a living with music. You're going to buy a $2,000, but that's what I'm seeing. It's like a personal thing. People just want to spend their time modulating sound. And I think, that's kind of where we're at now. We've just increased the mass of people making music now, but I think we're listening to music in a totally different way. So I have no idea if my monologue makes any sense at the end of the day, but
I think so. I think a big issue is there's so many more inputs, and there's an endless stream of information we can get. And I mean, even if you just follow the news, crazy events happen, and then tomorrow something happens that just erased everything you were talking about a week ago that was going to end the world, and this new thing is up, and tomorrow to be something else. We have access to every piece of music ever, and then we can go on the TV and watch every show ever. It used to be you had a few channels and a few records, and there was less to disperse your attention towards. And now we have so much. I think a really good practice is to just focus, just to decide this is what I'm going to get into. I've been enjoying the Cars lately, the band The Cars. I mean, I've always loved The Cars, but I made it a point I'm going to go on a deep dive and listen to everything they ever did. And for the past 2 or 3 weeks, the only band that matters to me in the world is The Cars. And
I like that.
And
it's like a deep dive, a relationship with their material.
And I was thinking to myself, this in the past, listening to The Cars casually, there's the hits and the songs that are just great that pop out. And then there was a lot of stuff to me that was just kind of forgettable and I didn't really care about. But in my deep dive, I've just come to love The Cars. And it's not I love this song by The Cars like I used to, or that song. It's I just love these guys, and what they're doing. And even the songs that I would have skipped in the past, I just love it. It's this thing I'm into now. And it's been really interesting to me to find there were certain songs I was just I never cared about this song, and now it comes on, I'm this is really cool. And it's just them. It's those people doing their thing.
And
it has been really enjoyable, and I've kind of tuned everything else out. It's just been all I've been listening to. And it's been a lot of fun. Maybe we get that a little bit if we binge a TV show or something where we just kind of focus in on things. But otherwise, scattering your attention. If you're listening to music, but you also have the TV on and you're reading a book and you're, that's cleaning the kitchen at the same time. I do that all the time. But
is it good for us?
The most valuable thing we have is our attention. And where we put that, time, but you can waste time by not paying attention to anything that you're doing, or too many things, so you don't get anything out of any of it. But when you just decide to pay attention to something, it's you start to realize all the great things about it. And I think that happened to me with some of those obscure car songs that I never really cared for. I'm just well, you know what? If I just go into this thing and just accept this thing, it comes alive. It opens up, and almost I kind of think that nothing can be boring if you pay enough attention to it and you think about it enough. We get bored when we when we think about what else is out there. What else is there? Like when I'm listening to a song, I'm streaming, I'm trying to see if I like this new album or whatever. 50% of my mind at least is saying all right, if I don't like this, what else can I go to?
It's incredible, man. I watch myself walking from the studio to home. I have 10-minute walk. What should I listen to? I spend 7 minutes overwhelmed by my choices. Then I get mad at myself for not just choosing something. Yesterday, I was trying to get into some classic ambient stuff. So I'm like, okay, you have the Pitchfork 50 best albums, ambient albums of all time. Is there a Spotify list? You start checking for that. It's like by the time I got home, I barely had anything. I didn't immerse myself in the music.
And 3 minutes
But
is not enough for an ambient immersion.
it's terrible. It's funny. It's ridiculous.
It is funny. I do that all the time with a lot of my
It's
free time.
ridiculous.
I spend a lot of my free time pacing around the house trying to decide what I'm going to do next.
Attention is
caught
so
myself
key,
on
man.
that.
Attention is so key, man. Like you said, time is a limited resource, so we're equal there. Everyone has the same amount of time. But it's the quality of the attention that you put on every portion of your day that's literally going to determine your fate. And it's harder than ever to focus on any one thing because you're afraid that if you focus on one thing, you're going to miss out on a bunch of other things. So then that's somehow going to impact you negatively. But the truth is, you got to think about carefully what you want to spend your time on. You got to consider carefully all the different important areas in your life. So the financial, how are you going to pay your bills? You got to give some thought to that. And you got to put some effort to focus, to bring something to fruition. Especially when there's no promise of that being like 100% commercially viable and paying your bills. So that was my idea, for instance, to stimulate my life to get away from doing toilet paper ads. I was like, why don't I share my knowledge with other people through an online masterclass? Zero guarantee that this would have worked. Like zero. And yet I had to spend like 7 weeks, more than that. I mean, it took me like a year to prepare this thing or to think about it or to start. But it was like literally 7 weeks of like 24/7 work to get it finished because people signed up on the pre-sale. They gave me their credit card and I'm like, yeah, the first module is launching next week. But then like when I released the first week, I had to do the second week. So it was like a real scramble. And I had no kind of guarantee that, it would be commercially viable beyond the people who bought the pre-sale. But the fact that I was able to focus on it for 7 weeks, how much good fruit that resulted in. That I was single-minded, dude. I wore the same freaking clothes for 7 weeks, like black track pants, black t-shirt, in the studio, sketching out the lesson plan, recording it in the afternoon, editing it in the evening. The next day, then the next module. The next day, the next module. Like I did not exist. I was a zombie for 7 weeks. But when I look back on that time, I was like really satisfied by the fact that I could keep my focus so singular. And I really liked the way I was functioning in those 7 weeks because I was really pragmatic. I had a lot of decisions to make for every week's module. And you've seen the masterclass, the damn thing is 37 hours of content. And I would get to like a Wednesday and I would realize suddenly that the grand ambitions I had for recording 3 more lessons, they're not going to happen. I'm running out of time. I need to cut back the curriculum for this week, just the bare essentials. So because I had the time pressure, I had the focus, I had to get it out there. It's like your mind is asked to step up and go, okay, we have a gun to our head. We're cutting these 2 modules. That's it. Decision made. Let's just focus on the core. It would have been nice to do those, but they're not essential. Next. And after I launched the masterclass, it was like your focus washes out. It's like, it's like preparing for an album launch or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you ever had those moments where you really had to channel your focus because you were facing a deadline and you kind of loved it. Like it didn't seem so fun at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But like once you launch the project, you look back on it and you go, wow, man, I was like so laser focused and sharp and fast, and I actually did something. Here it is. Like, boom, it's out there. It's causing stuff to happen all over the world now, right? So I find in my day to day, it's like I miss that thrill of that hyper focus and like having a deadline, and delivering something. I mean, you know, in my business, we live on deadlines. We live and breathe deadlines. I mean, it's like we have 2 days to make music for a big commercial, but it's not my project. It's not self-initiated. It's not something I conceived of and authored and put out in the world. So it's almost like you're running around for somebody else. So that's not exactly satisfying after many years. You know, what you want and what is the rare and difficult thing to do these days when you have like Netflix, HBO, and the algorithms on your phone basically serving you up incredible content. The most challenging thing today for anybody is to go, okay, I'm going to put the phone away. I'm going to turn off HBO, turn off Netflix. I'm going to conceive of something that uses my superpowers, my natural talents, that could be useful to somebody else. And this thing doesn't exist, but I'm going to sketch it out. I'm going to plan it. I'm going to promise the world that it's coming. I'm going to lock myself in a studio for a month, 2 months, whatever. I'm going to make it and I'm going to put it out there. It's hard to regret doing something like this. Like, even if it doesn't go optimally, basically you're training yourself how to resist all the bad things that are happening to us in this world, which is like loss of attention, distraction, being on YouTube 6 hours a day. What do you got to show for it? Like, you know, so I feel it's more important than ever for like humans to sort of reclaim their lives, resist the temptation of all this stuff that they could consume, and yeah, just find something that'll wrap you up, you know, singular focus, create something useful for humanity, put it out there, you know.
I think that point you make needs to be emphasized, that you, even if it does nothing, no one ever sees it, it's that training you're giving yourself and that
You're
practice.
a different human.
You are.
After those 7 weeks, you're a different human.
It's good practice for everything you'll ever do in your life. And to see it like that, that's a really important part too, is to just know that, like, look, even if this thing doesn't succeed, even if it's a failure on whatever level, it's not going to be a failure because I put myself through that, and I got through this, and I learned things about getting stuff done and being disciplined, and like you said, cutting things that aren't necessary. Just going through the process is valuable.
It's never a failure because you cannot predict what's going to happen. Like, I had no idea how many people would enroll in the masterclass. I'm wildly surprised by the amount of people. Wildly. And also where they're coming from. Students all over the world: Spain, Portugal, Italy, Colombia, Iceland, Sweden. It's incredible, man. Like,
that's the beauty of today. Like, you probably couldn't find that many people in your neighborhood to do it, but
no way, man.
You don't need to. You just need those like scattered individuals.
That's right. That's right. But, you know, but honestly, the way you will feel about yourself,
empowered,
after going through something like this, it will give you a crazy momentum, because you will start trusting yourself. You will start seeing yourself in a different light. There's no way that giving into all the things that society, whatever, our environment today, there's no way to feel good about yourself if you give into all those things. If you let yourself be fed by the algorithms, if you let yourself watch Netflix or HBO because it cleverly plays the next show immediately so that you don't get a chance to wake up out of your trance. Have you ever felt good about watching Yeah, 3-4 episodes in a row of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
And like,
that's a great show. but
no,
it's,
but you know what I mean.
I
I
can
mean, I
feel
don't.
great about that if I've made the decision, like that's what I'm doing. You know, I've been doing my work. I've been disciplined with other
Sure.
things, and now this is a timeout. And that's another thing like that. You know, it's great once you get in this mindset of being driven and focused and doing things and moving forward. But sometimes I think we can get in that also. A byproduct of that mindset is like beating yourself up when you're taking a break and
Yeah.
when you're time out. So the 3 episodes of Breaking Bad are cool if you're not sitting there dreading the fact that you should be at work and you should be doing things. Because what's the point? You're not enjoying it and you're
You're
wasting
totally
time.
right, man. Yeah, you're totally right. It's a balance, and I certainly don't feel bad about watching Gomorrah. Probably like 3 episodes in a row. But yeah, it's like at the end of a day where you actually carved out time to do something that's your own, then it has its place, you know. But it can't, like, we're just more liable, or we're more we're less
Vulnerable, maybe?
immune.
Yeah.
We're less immune. Like, it's so strong, man. You know,
Well,
did you watch The Social Dilemma?
yes, I was just thinking of bringing that up with you
Yeah,
because
man.
it's been like expertly crafted to keep us engaged and involved and like coming back to it. Like it plays on us on a chemical DNA type level that we just can't resist. We're just not, even when you know it's happening, it's hard to resist.
Do you
Just
not find it strange that we have the world's smartest people being recruited straight out of school or wherever they are? Maybe they didn't even go to school because they're such geniuses that they're already recognized in their teenage years. And basically, they get thrown like 7-figure salaries in order to solve what kind of problems? How do we get the average human to click on something? That's what they're doing. Like,
to
I don't
spend
know.
more time being distracted.
Like, I don't know how many of these geniuses could be solving cancer right now instead of like using their intelligence to figure out how to click on a button.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
kind of weird, man.
I don't see it as like a nefarious thing where they're evilly manipulating us. I mean, they're just doing their job. Just like I'm trying to get people in my classroom to pay attention to me or
Absolutely. I'm
or
not saying it's an evil
no, I
thing,
don't
but I
think you
mean,
are, but I think that is a perception people get. Like there's some like bad guy
oh, I
sitting
see
on the
what you mean.
mountain, like with
Right.
puppeteer things. Like that's I don't see it that way, but it's just you know, if like you're trying to keep people engaged in your thing, you want them to pay attention to you, and it's just good to recognize like that's what's at work and it's playing on us, and we have to fight it because we are like perfect victims for it. We're completely vulnerable to it.
Yeah, and this is why, like, getting into the exercise of creating something of your own and then being effective at selling that or sharing your story about that. I think that's the best skill you can develop today, not just to be a consumer. So, for instance, I have a Facebook account, but I rarely go on to Facebook and I rarely go on to Instagram. Why? Because
You might not
I
come
could
out.
spend hours there. Sorry?
I said you might not come out.
I might not come out. Yeah. So, but do I use Facebook for my advertising, for my academy? Absolutely.
Mm.
I got 5,000 Instagram followers. I rarely post anything, and it's all because of the advertising I'm doing for the academy. So I'm kind of enjoying that. I'm like, you know what? I'm not using Facebook as a consumer. I'm using it as a tool to do my thing, to create something useful and then use the technology, which is crazy. I mean, it's incredible to me that I can laser focus my targeting. You know, tomorrow I can basically go, all the people who like KRK monitors, I got a message for you. And I will appear on the screen to all the people who like KRK monitors. I mean, if that doesn't blow your mind and give you ideas about like how to connect your thing, your product, your story, your service, whatever it is that you want to offer, it's a crazy opportunity. It's unbelievable that the robots will do this work for you of delivering your message.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important lessons that I try to get across to, whether I think especially for my high school students, but even the students in my Berkeley classes or the people I interact with online, is that you have to just, like what you're saying, get that focus and work and trust the process. And um, it there's a lot of people. I mean, I see them all the time at school that never get the like realization that like, wow, if I worked hard at something, like I can do this stuff. Like stuff will happen. It's hard to see those big changes in you because they happen so slowly day by
Yeah.
day. It's like you don't see yourself age really in the mirror. I look like I did yesterday every day for the rest of my life, but when I look at a picture from 10, 15 years ago, I can see the change.
So
But
true.
it's hard to see that in your own growth. But learning that, experiencing that is probably the most important lesson I think anyone could learn, is just that you can do stuff, if
Yeah,
you
it's
chip
like
away day by
realize that
day.
you're the author of your creative life and your creative career. Like there's not it's not the circumstances that make you. They might influence you,
Hmm.
but you really do have a choice how you spend the next half hour. Like there is always a half hour, always. Like
Yeah.
I know people. I have a family. I got a business to run. I got two businesses to run. I got music production company. I got the academy. I got a family. There's very little time, but there's always half an hour.
Hmm.
And I mean that for every aspect of your life. So for instance, one of my struggles these days is like business is going well. Music production company is doing well. Masterclass is doing well. But sometimes I feel empty a little bit inside because my relationship with music is strictly commercial. So either I'm teaching people how to make money with music or I'm making money with music.
Hmm.
But like these synths behind me are a nice backdrop for the videos, but I'm not really getting much joy out of them because at the end of a long day, it's like, oh, I look at them. Do I have time? No, I need to go home. It's like, dinner time, whatever. But the reality is it's a choice. I am free to choose to spend 30 minutes before I start work or maybe after dinner when the kids go to sleep to sit down at my Prophet and start playing some chords for no good reason other than to tickle my soul,
Hmm.
to feel that thing I felt as a kid when I first had like a Casio synthesizer and I was able to affect sound. I was the master of sound. I could make it go left. I could make it go right. I could do whatever. And yeah, not big steps, not giant promises, not big declarations. Just spend half hour going for a brisk walk, writing an outline for your novel, sketching pieces for your next EP, just enjoying your latest synthesizer without even hooking it up to your sound card. Just headphones. That's what I did like the other day, man. I put on my headphones and I was just playing. I was like,
Hmm.
shit, this is so nice because I don't have the pressure to record. I can't record right now. So none of this actually has to be good or has to be toward an end, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, but yeah, I find myself really having to fight the external pressures of the algorithms suggesting me stuff, the content I want to watch, all the stuff that's out there that I want to process. And instead just go, maybe I should offer something to the world, instead of like eating somebody else's stuff. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, the most important practice for your work, for your life, and for your soul, really. Because your soul, maybe some people don't believe in soul, but this is just my way of saying that we're all born with a certain fascination. For some reason, Brian Funk is sitting there in his studio surrounded by all these synths. Why? Could be various reasons. Could be maybe from parents. Could be maybe that the parents weren't musical at all, but like from a little kid, you were always fascinated about sound. There's something, man, like an invisible operating system that, like a cloud, that is with us, that makes us be fascinated with certain things. Like my daughter loves horses. It certainly didn't come from me. It didn't come from my wife. Where did it come from? That's why I believe in this soul thing. It's like
horses are cool if you pay attention to them. If you like really think about them, like you're like, wow, this is an amazing animal. Like, and like it's smart and it's powerful. Like if you look into it, I kind of think,
you look into it,
like my whole musical journey could very well just be down to like a single day in my life when my best friend, when we were 14 years old, brought over, or I went over his house, he had a guitar and he showed me how to play Enter Sandman. Like if that didn't happen, if maybe he didn't ever play guitar, we just didn't even have that one day, who knows? I might not have ever gone down this path because it was just nothing I ever thought I could do. And it could, even if it wasn't that he didn't start it, or it just wasn't that one day he showed me that, he might have went on to play guitar and I would have said, wow, that's crazy that he can do that. I don't even know anything. And who knows where things would go.
Yeah.
It might just be the fact that day, just because him and I were great friends and all the things we liked, we both shared. So him showing me that made me think about it more than I ever had before. It could just be that I decided to pay attention to that.
I feel like it's almost like there has to be something inside of you already that resonates with the external. So like, if there's nothing to begin with inside, like what does the external thing resonate with on the inside then? Because it's almost like a communion, like a connection. It's like, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's like, why does my daughter like horses over cats or over dogs? But like horses, very specifically, horses are her fascination when it didn't come from us. So, I think just follow that. Follow your fascination, And what you said is also very true. It's like, well, I don't have a fascination. I don't know. I just don't have this specific hobby or like a specific obsession. Everything is interesting. Just find something. It could be the history of Japanese art. It could be calligraphy. It could be
how to make a good sandwich. It could be
anything.
It's like just like what you pay attention to, and you everything suddenly like opens up and like blossoms into this web of complexity that you never knew was there. And wow, I had no idea like having a horse involves all that care and maintenance and training and grooming. Like you just see the horse or you just hear the song and you're like, they must have just had a computer and they, today in the studio you can just auto-tune everything and you got a hit. Like people think like that. But when you actually get into anything, it just, the complexity and the depth just blows out.
And the cool thing is if you do like pick a random object to get fascinated by, but then you share your learning with others and you can tell a fascinating story about it, you're going to build an audience. There's no doubt about it. It's like, and don't think because you're not advanced expert on it, people are not going to follow you. because like the thing I've realized is when you want to learn something, teach someone. Because in order to learn something, well, when you teach someone, you have to learn something. So you basically have to organize the information in your mind, right?
Yeah, you break it
So
down.
so let's say you're talking about making sandwiches, right? If you learn to get fascinated by that, you're going to start gathering facts about it, stories. Like when was the first sandwich ever made? That's pretty fascinating. Like, you know, a sandwich needs bread. When was bread first made? Like when did it first turn into layers and all that stuff?
You get into like
and imagine you
human
start sharing that with the you
how
start
that
sharing that with
changed
the
us.
world.
Yeah, farming and
It's like, especially today, I feel like, you know, the niche subjects are very interesting because they're not part of the mainstream thing. It's like we're all talking about politics. We're all talking about the things that are sort of on top of mind, you know, the lockdowns and the pandemic and all that stuff. And that's why I think, you know, these niches are refreshing, you know, and people kind of gather around them because it's like a relief from, it's something different, it's something interesting. It's like everyone's talking about this, but like here's a group of people that are gathering around this subject, you know, making sandwiches. I guarantee there are courses, there are YouTube channels, there are membership groups all around making sandwiches. It's incredible, man. Like the stuff that you can.
And if there's not, that's an open door for someone to go through with their passion and their idea.
That's right. And if there is, don't be discouraged by the fact there is, because I remember seeing this clip from Gary Vaynerchuk where he's sitting in the back of a cab with some guy, and the guy's asking him like, yeah, but what should the niche for my YouTube channel be? What should is that what he said? Niche. Yeah, he said, what should be the niche? And he was really overthinking it. And like what Gary Vaynerchuk said literally like blew my mind. I mean, my mind doesn't get blown that often. And it wasn't like some sage.
He's very good at pointing out the brilliant, obvious.
But he was so, you know what he said to the guy? You are the niche, Dick.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. That means I could literally press record and just be Tommy Zee. And over time, as long as I talk about the things that fascinate me, that curiosity, that energy, that passion with which I share the things that excite me is going to bring other people to me that resonate with me. That's it. Could be a bottle of wine. It could be a certain kind of coffee that I'm talking about. It could be a synthesizer. It could be a microphone. It doesn't matter. Other people will stick to you because of it. And I think that's been your experience, right? Hasn't it? Like, I mean,
yeah. I mean,
like, where are these people coming from? And they're sticking to you over all these years.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think doing the podcast has even been better on a lot of levels because it sometimes gets more personal. Whereas a lot of like the stuff I do, I'm making sound packs or doing tutorials, say, or whatever. It's kind of pointed and to the point, to the subject. But like the podcast, on the other hand, like it's kind of thinking through things and talking through things, and my perspective will come out and the guest's perspective. And I think people enjoy that. You know, that's what I enjoy about a lot of podcasts that I listen to is just, I just like hearing what this person has to say about this, their view and how they interact with certain people. Like they just have a way, you know, like Gary Vee is a great example. Like he talks to anybody, and it's just interesting to see like his view is so like applicable to so many different things.
Yeah.
That philosophy he has is just makes it work no matter who he's talking to. He's talking to the person that wants to make wine or learn about sell sneakers or whatever. It's still like the message is he could be talking to anybody.
You know why I think he's been successful? I can really see that he understands his audience. Like when you see him talking one-on-one with someone, you can see that he's searching,
Yeah.
and his mind is working really quickly to understand who is standing in front of him, what they're struggling with, and what the answer is. And I think he's very good at that. Very good. As much as he doesn't come across that way, because he's swearing and talking fast and he's pretty intense, I really do believe him when he says, I'm somebody who is full of empathy. Like, even though he deals with people at scale, like when he deals with them individually, you can see that he truly understands the person. And why he's been successful is, I believe, he digs really deep to the thing that we all want, which is to be relevant, to get our story across. That's what he's basically like. Why do his videos reach millions of people and they get like so many likes? Is because people feel like he's talking to them personally and trying to kick them in the ass to actually start being active in this crazy world full of noise, to to not be afraid to add your voice to this, to what's going on, to not shrink back, but to actually press record and to get yourself out there. That's why I think he's very successful, and it's very motivating. I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not a fan of spending 18 hours on social media, but there's certain aspects of his message which are very motivating to me. And I think, if you want to learn from the masters, he's one of them. Like, you should definitely at least hear him out. Again, you shouldn't agree with, you should think critically for yourself when you listen to anybody. But
he'll fire you up. I like that about him.
He'll fire you up.
He'll that's why I think he's, he curses a lot, and that's something he talks about. Even he's like, that's partially it's me, but you can fire people up that way.
Well, I think what he's doing is he's essentially just, I can see in every video he records, he's trying to phrase things in the most direct. He's just trying to get to the bottom of things, to the root of things, and he's basically doing it as he talks. So he's trying to figure it out as he's going along. And that's what's exciting. It's like, because you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Well, we get lost in the details a lot, right? We get lost in the branches that spread out into the individual and into the specific, but it all does lead to a root. And a lot of these, like, as different as things can be, there's still like some fundamental, simple, basic things that all of this originates from.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. And, and in the end, we're all human. We all have dreams. We all want to matter in some way. For some, it's like being in the limelight. For others, it could be just small actions and making a difference in a few people's lives. But I think what is universally true is, like, we do want to feel a sense of belonging. We want to feel like we matter, like our life mattered, like we were useful to someone. And I think, whatever it is that you do, whether it's like making music or teaching people or selling a product, if you treat people that way, if you see them as a fellow human being, a brother or sister, I have this habit of looking at people as if they were my kids. It's very weird, I know. But it's like when I got a 50-year-old guy being rude to me on the street, or I don't know, getting into an argument with a stranger, I always look at him and go, what if this was my son? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like the dynamic completely changes. It's like he has his problems. He's got his issues. He's got his worries. Maybe he's sick. Maybe his wife is sick. I don't know. But like, if he was my son, I would be a lot more filled with empathy, trying to understand, why is he yelling? What's going on that he can't be calm? And so I'm saying, when you deal, I'm trying to do this in my work. For instance, when a producer from an agency yells at me in an email, I'm trying to think of them as a human with dreams, desires, fears, She wants to matter. She just wants to get through the day and just come home to her family. It's extremely helpful. And also when you're marketing your stuff, whether it's your album or music or a masterclass or a course or whatever, man, a guitar pedal, just don't see numbers, but see human beings on the other end. Like, what did it, you know, it's I was listening to this thing the other day, and the guy was talking about marketing, and I don't remember who it was, but he said when somebody is buying a drill, it's not that they're buying a drill. It's like you take a step forward, you go deeper and you analyze and you go, what they want is a hole in the wall. That's usually like where it stops in the marketing explanation. It's not that they want a drill, they want a hole in the wall. But he went further than that. He's like, they don't even want a hole in the wall. What they want is a nail in the wall so they could hang a picture of their family or a painting or a piece of art that makes them feel something, or, you know. And so I believe that the deeper you can go in thinking about the sort of universal desires of all human beings, and you will understand them because you're a human being. I'm a human being, you know. But if you talk to other people that way, I think, yeah, you will always resonate, no matter if it's an album or a shirt or a hat or a piece of art or a photograph. When you speak to those deepest desires of human beings, especially at a time right now when we deal with so much superficial things, like, you know, superficial entertainment, just a lot of noise, right?
Yeah.
I don't think our desires changed. I think we want to matter, you know. I think at the end of the noise, at the end of the superficial entertainment, at the end of watching fails for 2 hours, that thought comes back to us like, does my life matter? You know, do I, you know, I mean, yeah. Am I making the most of my time here? Like, am I feeling like my life is making a difference to someone? You know, that's what I think about. So it's never a bad bet to consider the person on the other end of the screen and remember that they're in the same boat, you know. And like somebody said, none of us is getting out of this boat alive.
Yeah.
So have some patience, have some consideration, you know, and yeah, let's just be useful to one another, be kind and useful to one another.
Yeah, it's so important what you said too, like the way you look at someone maybe who is giving you a hard time specifically in that moment as like your son, or have that empathy. I mean, you're just getting a small slice of them at that moment, you know? This is not a good representation of who they are and a complete picture. And I don't think anyone would be happy to be summed up in like some small slice of their life. Even like their greatest moments, their greatest achievements.
Right.
Like that's just a piece, you know, that's just a little tiny sliver. And we so often are making like complete judgments about people's entire lives based on sometimes seconds of their existence. I really think this is an issue we've come across since things like the lockdown happened. Like there's been all kinds of division and fighting and politics, like here in America right now, like the this side versus that side. And we're seeing it really play out with the election. I think we're really missing like our daily interactions. So like I could go to work and see Bob, who I don't agree with, and just shoot the shit with him. Just have a simple conversation about the day, maybe make a joke, laugh. How was the game last night? You know, whatever. Simple life things where we don't get into these disagreements and we're in the commonalities and stuff. And I can leave that and be like, yeah, you know, Bob, he's kind of crazy about some of his beliefs. And I don't really like what he says about this or that, but he's just a guy trying to do the best he can in life. He's trying to feed his family and, you know, whatever. And when we got locked down, you weren't having those interactions anymore with those people that you normally wouldn't hang out with and normally wouldn't spend time with. and they, I think, became like characterizations of who
Yeah.
they are, and you're only getting your side of the story on your social media feed, and it's just fueling
Yep.
your beliefs, and then there's no game to even talk about, to shoot the shit about, you know.
Yeah.
Like
You can't even get there to that small talk because
that
you've
stuff's
already,
canceled, you know.
yeah, 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 I'm
So
so with you on that. I think back in the day, like people had different views,
mhm.
but they were able to reconcile them and cooperate in a constructive manner in the world,
Yeah,
and even appreciate each other's views and maybe even convert sometimes. Because if you think about it, like if you could be humans with Bob first, so like focus on the things that you both agree on, like you want the best for your mates, for your
yeah,
dog, for your life, like no matter what you believe, those things are true for both of you. If you can agree to those things, then you feel at ease with a fellow human being, and then you're very you're much more likely to listen to Bob when he talks about what you consider a crazy belief, and you're going to listen to it in the spirit of, oh, that's what you believe, that's why you believe, because of ABC.
hmm,
Okay, well, that's not so crazy anymore now that I understand it. And vice versa, you know. Bob could, because you got a chance to, he got a chance to be with you as a human being, he will actually listen to you when you say, but Bob, haven't you ever thought of ABC? You know, and that discussion is in a totally different spirit. Like, so I'm so with you, man. If you just try to make friends with people first, just like each other first, just spend some time drinking a beer, a coffee, and just talking about all the things that you agree on. The discussion about the things you disagree on is going to be way more fruitful, because you're
yeah,
not going to have this weird thing that is happening today, which is like, I got Bob figured out.
yeah. In
Based
that,
on his Twitter post, I got him figured out.
based on the middle
There's no
finger I
talking to
got
them.
on the road from this one person, I know this is a terrible waste of
There
life.
is no talking to them. It's
Yeah,
done. It's like you dehumanize them almost. It's like they don't exist. Like you know, but
I think that's probably an evolutionary thing. That back in, let's say we're in our cave, right? You know, we're just trying to survive, and someone or something shows up at your cave door. You have to like immediately decide, is this friend or foe, threat or
yeah,
something,
yeah,
you know? And that, I think that's carried over. And you know, if someone were to walk in the room really quickly, you're going to make a lot of conclusions about them,
yeah,
about how they walked in the room, the tone of voice, the clothes they were wearing, a million different things come into play instantly. But, you know, I think we're all really much more alike than we are different. And I think I was just like someone talking about history or something. But, like, you know, we can look back on history, and there's some obviously like terrible things that have happened throughout the ages. But
yeah,
and just like, you know, morality has shifted and changed, and what's right, and you know, everything changes over time. But I think if we were stuck, like if you were a newborn baby transported back to any time period, you would just accept that stuff as normal. Like, I think we're
right,
so much more products of our environment than we realize.
yeah,
And it's sort of arrogant to think that if I was in Bob's shoes and I had all the experience Bob had, that I would be any different. Why would I be
right,
different? You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I think that's arrogant, and it's humbling, I find too, to say to myself, like, you know, if I was that person, I'd probably be that person too. You know, I would, if I had
yeah,
those experiences, who am I to think that I would be any different?
yeah. And
Eh,
you know, and viewpoints change. Also, you have people who go from being an extreme hippie to being an extreme conservative in their 50s and 60s, or vice versa.
mhm.
You have people who maybe were raised very strict, rigid, and then they are, you know, they become on the other side, like not conservative at all. So,
And
People
that's a
go through,
great thing, I think. Like,
yeah.
if you're
So
not
people,
changing in your life, and if you're not changing your mind ever,
yeah,
I think that's the problem. And we don't always value that in our
yeah,
societies, and we will dig up things that came up 20 years ago about a person that is maybe that was the very thing that changed them into.
yeah,
And I mean, I think if you're not changing your views once in a while, that's cause for alarm.
yeah. It's like Walt Whitman said, right? And when someone accused him of contradicting himself,
Well,
Walt Whitman, the great American poet, said, uh, I'm full of, yeah, so I contradicted myself. I'm full of contradictions. He said something like, I am made of multitudes, or I contain multitudes, you know? Um, yeah, I mean, you
yep.
want to find the truth. It's often paradox.
Yeah.
It's like two things that are opposite of each other, and somewhere in between, you find um, the truth, you know? But it's rarely on either extreme.
Hmm.
Like it's rarely there. Um,
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're all complicated and contradictory creatures, and I
yeah,
catch it in myself a lot of times through my teaching when I'm saying things that I like wholeheartedly believe, and then I think about how I'm acting, and realizing like, yeah, okay, buddy, like you know what you're saying, but you don't know what you're doing.
yeah.
But
But
I think you're right. I don't think there's as many extremes. There obviously are extremes out there, people that are on one extreme or the other, or some other third or fourth, fifth dimension. But I don't think it's as much as maybe we paint it out to be when we see somebody send out a tweet and then we decide their whole life. You know, we know if we have them figured
yeah,
out. Like,
yeah,
um,
yeah. It's
I
I
would
mean,
hate to
think
be
how many
judged
times.
by any one thing that ever came out of my mouth, good or
Yeah,
bad. Like I would
yeah,
probably have to like say, yeah, but you know what? I'd have to
yeah,
put an asterisk on anything to explain like the
yeah. It's like
depth.
we just have to calm down. You know, it's like just calm down. You know, look at the big picture. That's why it helps. You know, when I think of someone in a boat, we're all in the same boat. We're not getting out alive. It's some
Mm.
kind of a saying that I heard recently. Also, a fun saying is everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I love that saying because it's another paradox. It's like, you
I
know,
think
even
that's why I
moderation
stuck
is,
up for Breaking Bad for 3 hours, you know,
yeah,
because
even moderation
sometimes,
is
yeah,
bad. You know,
yeah,
it's all a balance. You know, it's like you're never in balance. I always feel like we're out of balance all the time. It's like when you're, you know, those rollers that you put a board on and like you
hmm,
kind of try to balance yourself on that board. It's how they teach you to skateboard or to, I don't know, water ski. Like
yeah,
when I was on vacation this summer, they had those things out, like these rollers right beside the surfing school, and people were trying to balance themselves. But you notice that you're never in a state of perfect balance on that board.
you're always
You're
adjusting.
always adjusting. You're always compensating. And I feel like that's true of our life.
And
Like,
that's before you're on the wave. That's throwing in another
yeah,
variable, right?
yeah.
You're on
So
sturdy
I
ground.
feel like, you know, there's always going to be some kind of a sacrifice. Um, and as long as you make it consciously, that's okay. So for instance, when I was working on the course, that's what I focused on for 7 weeks straight. And then when that was done, it's like the balance shifted more toward other things and less on the masterclass, like creation part.
Sure, you'd
Um,
fall out of balance in your life if that's all you focused on from there on out.
oh,
Even though
and
that
that
was
wouldn't be
incredibly
effective.
productive.
Wouldn't be effective at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a matter of balance and realize, man, and you're never gonna reach perfect balance. It's always like you're like this, you know?
You ever drive a car that's misaligned so that it either drifts one way or the other? It's
Yeah.
like that's how we are in life all the time. The car is always leaning and wobbling, and you got to keep correcting the wheel.
And you know what the lesson here is? Keep your eyes on the road. Keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And don't look at the rear view mirror too long, which means don't think about the past too much, because we're driving forward. And if you look at your rear view mirror driving forward, your journey might come to a pretty negative ending.
Right. Yeah.
You might drive off the road. But I think it's a good analogy, you know, like keep your eyes on the road, keep your hands on the steering wheel.
And the behavior that worked well for you a few miles back might not be so good because the terrain is changing in front of you.
That's right.
You know,
that's correct. And make sure to stop for gas once in a while, because if you tell me that you can't stop for gas because you got to keep driving, you can see the lunacy in that.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that kind of thinking helps with empathy and compassion. You know, I was definitely struck with it pretty hard as a teacher when there, you know, how it is at school. There's always like a couple kids that just are in trouble or not doing their work, or, you know, there are squeaky wheels. There's some kids that I would never have to even speak with and they would do fine. But others that are not. And every time I can think of where I got frustrated with a kid, or I was like, this is a lost cause, or I've had enough, I'm done, you know, I'm not even going to bother with this person anymore. It's like you get suddenly more of the picture becomes available. I find out what life was like at home and what just happened in there and how their childhood has been. And that you just start getting like more pieces of the picture. And there are things like these kids are going through that I don't know how I deal with as a grown adult. And there are no good answers for. And you just start to realize, like, you know, they're just humans trying to figure it out. I'm just a human. We're all just guessing, really. We're making our best guess. And probably some of those behaviors that I see as undesirable are actually helping them on some level. They are getting some benefit out of it. And maybe it's not a long-term plan you want to stick to, but there could be some.
It's like that saying that says, you know, everyone's doing their best. So like keep that in mind. Like everyone's doing their best. So you know, sometimes it's beyond us to like maintain our composure, and we lose our temper with our kids or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly, I wouldn't say that I'm not doing my best with my kid. I'm trying to do my best, but like it just happens. We're human, you know, this is a part of it. So that helps also, you know, when somebody freaks out at you, if you realize it's that whole space between stimulus and response, man. Mm-hmm. If you can just be so aware and in the moment and be like Neo in the Matrix to say, this just happened. The guy just called me an asshole. And put a pause right there.
Yeah.
Just pause the picture and go.
Like when those bullets are flying at him and he can see them in slow motion and just.
Yeah, the bullet is like someone calling you an asshole. And the bullet stops in front of your nose and you just kind of look at it and you go, is it really life-threatening? Does it really gonna affect my life to a point where I should really get my blood pressure up? I should really raise my voice and I should really react in kind? Or is that one of those moments that we can reverse karma? Because the expected thing in the Matrix is to reply with the same thing. Mm-hmm. No, you're the asshole. And on it goes, and the karma continues. But, you know, maybe it's like, I don't want to get biblical here, but like, why did Jesus say turn the other cheek? Maybe that's the same as looking at the bullet in the Matrix and going, I'm going to do exactly the opposite. So I'm going to pattern interrupt this guy. And we're going to walk away from this thing that started negatively, but it diffused completely and it turned into something even positive. Like, how many times has someone called you an asshole? I've had this happen where I'm actually on one of my better days, and I have a situation in the car where like somebody cut, I don't know, I cut someone off or someone cut me off. We end up rolling our windows down, and I'm like Neo in the Matrix. I'm actually aware of what's happening. And he goes, "Hey, you fucking asshole." And what do I say? I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry, man. I didn't see you. A mistake. It's a Sunday afternoon. Let's not, come on, man. Let's not. I'm sorry." And the guy literally looks at me and goes, "All right, you have a good day, brother. You too, brother." And, and it's like, if we can be the agent of that, like if we're on the receiving end of someone having a bad day, and we can like stop that bullet and like do exactly the opposite of what we're thinking of doing, and like do the opposite, man, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. Like, and even if it doesn't, we're not looking for credit here. The point is to reverse the karma, to stop that bullet, and to say, when the circumstances were really overwhelming, I managed to actually be Neo in the Matrix and not let the circumstances dictate the outcome, but instead exercise my freedom of choice to react this way or that way or that way in the moment. I know I sound amazing right now with this wisdom. The hard part is, man, like actually
doing it,
yeah, because I know this to be true, but I am just terribly upset at the world and everybody in it when someone doesn't stop for me at the pedestrian crossing. Dude, you should see my internal dialogue. Like, how could these people,
this world is going to hell.
This world is going,
the whole world.
And the whole world, man. Especially the guy who didn't stop for me. It's like, I want
ultimate
you
example of what is wrong with the world.
Yeah. But those pattern interrupts, man. Those pattern interrupts. It's the same with the haters. We spoke about it last time. Like, you get hate mail, I get hate mail. How dare you try to sell something to me?
Yeah.
And instead of going, "Hey, man, you're the asshole. Why are you calling me an asshole?" Just go, "Hey, I'm sorry if it offended you. I'm happy to take you off my list. I don't mean any offense. It's just I'm trying to do something useful here. I believe it's worth its value, but I certainly didn't mean to ruin your day." Because the funny thing is, no matter what you think about them, like as irrational as their email might be, there's some kind of suffering happening there. Like, for someone to actually write back to me and go, "Stop with these emails," or whatever, it means that no matter what I think about my product and how great it is and about how great my emails are, for some reason it caused them pain. Like, it could be reasonable, it could be unreasonable. But the reality is, whatever they're struggling with, whatever their life is at the moment, my email, my offer, whatever it is that I'm doing, has caused them some pain. And I don't want to be the agent of frustration in other people's lives. So it's like, just by pattern interrupting and replying with kindness and saying, "I'm sorry," or whatever, even replying. Because what I've noticed is a lot of the people who express negative emotions in emails to me by calling me names or whatever, they're surprised that I reply to them.
Yeah.
And that, to me, taught me a lesson, which is they don't expect to hear back. And maybe that's furthering their angst, that some guy is mass mailing. How dare he, man? Like, what the hell? Forget with these discounts, these offers. Stop emailing me. That's the nature of their email to me. Like, and then I write back and they're like, "Oh, dude, I didn't expect you to write back." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." So yeah, they just must feel like isolated and like they're like someone to take advantage of. Like, they're nothing but a consumer. Like, buy another thing, That's how they feel, like we're treating them that way. And I'm certainly not trying to treat people that way. But, man, it's like going back to that fascination thing you said about. If we learn to be fascinated by these encounters, then maybe there's a thing to learn about it. And then you realize we make it worse by focusing it on ourselves and our ego instead of like being fascinated about, why is this interaction taking place at this level? Like, and how can I be an agent of perspective, peace, and in a different way, a way that's is going to make us walk away from this exchange with some hope for humanity.
Yeah, I get those emails occasionally or those comments occasionally. And I've always tried to make it a point to either respond and be apologetic, and because I'm like you, I'm not trying to upset anybody by what I do, um, or just not saying anything at all. But that is the most common response, is like, oh, I didn't think anyone even read this, or I didn't know you would get it, or and a lot of times it's diffused. I've had a few instances where I got some pretty nasty emails and just apologized. I don't mean to upset you. It's not what I'm trying to do, and I'll definitely be out of your hair from here on out. And I've had actually like very positive things come out of that.
Yeah.
Where I know, like the first instinct sometimes is like, oh, they think they can talk to me like that. Well, I'm going to show them. And I'm going to say something. But if you can just see that bullet and tilt your head or dodge it or whatever, instead of just firing back, it is pretty amazing what you get out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And
I can't think of any time somebody carried on. Maybe it's happened, but I can't think of an example.
I had one time where people carried on, and it's fine, but at the end of the day, it's not other people's behavior that should change what we just discussed. Like, we're striving for an ideal. So if the ideal is Neo in the Matrix, it doesn't matter what anybody does.
Right.
So because
if it doesn't
the last
work,
thing you want to happen is like you turn
matter.
the other cheek and they slap you again. Like, then what? What if you say I'm sorry and they go, I don't believe you, asshole? What then? Do you lose your shit then? And no, it's like, it's not. It's the whole point is to break the karma. The whole point is to stop the bullet, to break the pattern, and to reverse it. I just, if I think about my aggression or any time that I've lost my shit or been unkind to people, it is totally true that it had nothing to do with them, but it was the perception of my smallness or of me being threatened in some way. Of like, who do you think you're talking to? That's what caused my angered response. That's what caused me to try to hurt the other person, is because I felt threatened or hurt. But man, this has so little meaning. If we're lying on our deathbed in our last moments, you'd be like, what was I doing, wasting all those times, like fighting over my ego or what? It's like, don't waste any time.
Well, could you
don't
imagine,
waste any time,
You imagine if you engaged with that person in the car that we had the spat with, and next thing you know, you're both out and you're in a fist fight and something happens. Maybe the person gets hurt, and now you're tied to them forever, and it might change the entire course of your life.
I know.
And then you'll be on your deathbed looking at that incident being like, that's where everything went off the road.
And it's just that one moment of not being
chance encounter. If you would have just like forgot your bag in the house and had to run back in the morning and then left, it never would have happened.
Yeah, that's why, man, I go back to the thing. Keep your eyes on the road. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. It's like it's a constant struggle. It's a constant lesson to try to be that aware person. Like, it's amazing how many older people snap. You'd think, oh, you've had all these years on Earth. Why are you snapping? It's like you should be a Zen master,
It's
a
still hard.
wise sage.
Yeah.
But it's like,
No one
but
is.
yeah,
No one's that person. But
yeah,
it's a
but
nice
like
ideal to
it's a
strive
nice
towards.
ideal, but at the end of the day, like we forget that they're struggling on a different level, man.
Mm.
Like arthritis, Alzheimer's, people dying, family members dying. You have no idea what's happening in another person's life at any given moment, you know?
No.
Um, we're all in a struggle. I don't mean to make it sound so negative because I do believe life, even despite the struggles, is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Always there are opportunities. And I've met people who are going through incredible struggles. And I mean, even people who have emailed me, who have been a part of my masterclass, 70-year-old guy who signed up for my masterclass, like 70 years old, like it's not the exact avatar you would think of as a customer uh, trying to make music for brands. But, you know, he told me at some point that he's going to have to ask for a refund, not because he doesn't feel up to doing the class. He is having a lot of fun with it, but because he was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Boy.
And I said to him, you know, dude, I'm going to give you your refund, but like, please keep doing the masterclass. I'm going to keep the access for you. Because I realized he signed up for the thing, not because he wants to make it per se into the business and be some hotshot composer for brands. It's because he's looking for ways to learn. He found this new thing. It's interesting to him. So he wants to occupy his time learning this thing, and he wants to learn about the gear. And, you know, it's just like what I saw in him was just like a little kid again who's fascinated with learning and sound. And he's not the only one. I have other people like this who are like, if I was just running a business that was based on like certain cold parameters, like, you know, actually I should only let in 35 to 45-year-olds. I'm not letting this guy in just because I can make some money off of him. It's because they want to do it. They want to occupy themselves with an organized curriculum in a thing that they find interesting. Like, why should I stop them? I'm going to be there for them, and I'm going to teach them, and I'm going to treat them the same as I teach a 24-year-old hotshot. Because I'm looking at them from that angle. Like, I see that they're just in it to learn. They're curious. They're retired. Some of these guys just want to spend their time in the studio doing something, you know? I mean, I was thinking, we were talking earlier on, and I had this email come in today, actually, from a guy. I don't want to say his name because let's just say that his last name is the same as a famous musician. Okay, a really famous musician. And I just got this email, and here's what this guy wrote. We'll call him Jim. That's his first name, actually. Thank you for writing with an actual person written email and not a computer reply. I am 66 years old, and after playing guitar, piano, singing, and writing for bands, I find myself done with that due to the current COVID situation. I have a small home studio and a very large catalog of material. I found you on Facebook just minutes before your presentation started. It resonated with me, and I look forward to working through your masterclass. I have supported myself and my family for about 40 years as a musician, teacher, freelance composer, local small stuff, and music director. I think I've said enough. I believe you when you say you want to give back and help others. That's what I do. Help others achieve their musical dreams. Sincerely, Jimmy, then his last name. And 66 years old, you know? So I wrote back to him, hey, Jimmy, it's incredibly inspiring to hear about a lifelong musician who found a way, somehow, some way, to support himself and his family with music. I appreciate your thoughtful email, and you're still at it, trying to learn, checking things out, reaching out to others. That's what it's all about, right? Please share some of your music with me, and maybe you'd be up for a chat about your life as a musician, a perspective of someone who's had such a long journey already. I'm sure you still have many years of wonderful musical moments ahead, but your story and lessons might be useful to other musicians. Let me know what you think. That's what I wrote back to him. But
Nice.
it's like, you know, in this cold age of like people advertising at you, trying to sell your stuff, nothing wrong with that. I'm doing the same. But I'm trying to put everything in right place, like the Radiohead song says. So if I can get robots to carry my ads to different corners of the world 24/7, that's a pretty effective way to share your thing. But I also reply to people, and that doesn't scale very well. But I vowed to myself, I'm not going to be that guy that sells you a course, a masterclass, whatever, and then you never hear from me again. You know, so it's not easy because I have more and more students, and I find myself doing emails on Saturdays, Sundays, whatever. But that's how I choose to do it, because that's the legacy I want to leave, is that guy answered the email. He was like in the industry, but he actually answered my email. And I get to actually enjoy my life because I go to sleep at night knowing that 66-year-old Jim is going to feel good about himself as a human today. And I'm going to feel good about myself as a human, because in the moment where there was a choice to, either reply to the email or let my automated robots send them a generic reply, I decided to reply to him. Even though, again, it's not a 24-year-old hotshot who maybe is going to make it big in the industry. And then I'm going to be able to sing praises about how great my masterclass is because I helped this guy. So I always try to think of like the long view, you know, what's going to happen when I'm laying under a streetcar, or, you know, when it's my last moments on earth. Like, what are those simple things that I did that maybe brighten somebody else's day? And that's possible to do while running a commercial enterprise. Like, you can do that, you know?
Well, the beauty is you just have no idea how far that ripples out. It might really be a major event in that person's life just to get that positive feedback that maybe they're not getting anywhere else.
That's right.
You just really don't know. So it's kind of nice. I mean, for you to send that email back was a few minutes of your life, right?
That's it, man.
And those few minutes, it's like if you're throwing the pebbles in the pond, you know, those ripples might go on forever. Some of them might not cause any ripples. It might not matter. But if you throw enough of those little stones, like, you start getting waves and you start actually making differences in people's lives.
And it actually changes you as a person.
And that's the other thing I wanted to say too, is it's not a one-way street. Like, you sending out that positive vibe, that rings in on you too. You've broken whatever, you know, pattern your mind was in for that moment, and you've absorbed yourself in this person that's appreciating you.
Yeah.
It's its own reward again. It's another one of those things where
just
I'll tell you that act values itself.
When I launched my ads for the masterclass, I mean, they're effective, but it's essentially me for a minute, like convincing you to sign up for my free training, like hundreds or thousands of other people do online. And my free training has a really good reputation, but a lot of people who watch it go, I don't know why I signed up for your free training. I'm glad I did, though, because it was different. Like, it was actually valuable as opposed to other trainings. But when I launched those ads initially, I was kind of fighting within myself. Like, there was a struggle. Like, am I being too salesy? I don't know. Like, and then I also had like enough negative comments to really start questioning myself. Like, am I really a guy who's just trying to like get people into this free training to sell a masterclass? Well, yeah, I am. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as I am actually being like, I have integrity and I'm really genuinely trying to help other people, and my stuff is good. Like, it's really going to make a difference in people's lives. And so I told myself that as long as I carry myself with that integrity and that human touch, that's going to always counteract that whole mass algorithm ad thing, which is displaying ads to all these people right now as we speak. There are thousands of people being exposed to my ads. And every time I see negative comment on my ads these days, I no longer question myself. I no longer feel bad. I just disregard. I go, this guy has no idea what he's saying, because he hasn't actually reached out to me. He hasn't actually tried to interact with me.
His cat might have just barfed on the carpet and he's pissed off at
That's
everything.
it. That's it.
It's not even you.
That's it. It's because he doesn't know that he's making the assumption, here's another talking head trying to convince me for some free training. Oh yeah, what's the catch? He's going to try to sell me something. Yes, I am going to try to sell you something. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it just doesn't mean that it's bad. You need to do your own research and investigate. And but yeah, what I simply wanted to say is the fact that I answer emails on Saturday mornings to people when, it's like, I don't have to answer these emails. As an online masterclass provider, rarely do people answer their own emails, like the guys who run these masterclasses. They usually don't answer their emails, but I do it so that when I see negative comments on my ads, I have a clean conscience. I can simply go, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm doing everything in my power to keep everything human and to, not treat people as if they're faceless customers, but real human beings with wants and needs who are spending their hard-earned money. And so I'm never going to make them feel like I just took their money and disappeared. No, so yeah, that's kind of like been my MO. And I'm really happy about it. Like, that's the brand I want.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone who's ever interacted with me on a student mentor level to, like, if one of my students said to me something negative, then I would feel really hurt, like, oh man, I really need to rejig what I'm doing. But luckily, I've never had once anyone, even people who asked me for a refund for whatever reason on the masterclass because they got hard times or realized it wasn't for them. They were all like, this was really good stuff, man. You're a great teacher, but I can't do this now. Things are too tight. And I'm like, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. No questions asked, man. Here's your money,
Yeah. I operate the same way. I mean, if you're not happy with if you bought a pack off me and you don't like it, or you're not going to use it, or it's different than you thought, like, I don't want your money. Like, I'm not trying to take people's money. Like, part of what I'm trying to do here is, as you are, offer a useful service at a reasonable price that, it's mutually beneficial. It's a transaction. You're not trying to scam people. So yeah, like, I don't want that money. That's like stealing to me in a way.
Yeah.
I didn't deliver on my end of the bargain. So, and the beauty of like some of the digital stuff that I do, and I guess maybe the master courses, it's really no skin off your back. It's not like they ate the sandwich and now you'll never get the sandwich back. It cost you money. It's really, it's an easy, financially, I guess it's an easy policy to back up.
Yeah.
And,
it always stings a little when somebody asks for a refund, but yeah, like you said, it's not like they're returning a textbook with pages missing.
Yeah, and like, I've had people return things, and because of that, say, I'm going to get this thing instead, or I'm going to do that instead, or I still listen to your podcast. They still like respect your work.
Yeah,
because you're standing behind it.
Speaking of listening to your podcast, like, how long have we been recording now?
Oh, wow. I think we're at 2 hours at this point.
What's your longest podcast? I mean, I would be shocked to hear that somebody will
I
spend
don't
2 hours
know.
with us.
I think I've done 2 hours a handful of times.
And do you have
I
stats? Like,
I don't
I'm
know
guessing
what's
most
the
people will
longest.
drop off, but like,
Um, there are some stats. There are ways to find out listening percentage, completion, and that stuff. I got to be honest with you, I don't spend a lot of time looking at that stuff.
you just
Um,
publish
yeah,
and
I check like, how many downloads periodically or
yeah,
um things like that, but yeah, I don't get too wrapped up in that. I don't
yeah,
have a lot of
yeah,
time to get wrapped up in that to begin with. And you know, uh, the best feedback I get is our emails. That to
yeah,
me, like, or anything, or someone retweets it and just says this episode was cool. Like that,
yeah,
that's the stuff I care about.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's probably a good way to do it. Like, because I'm putting out YouTube videos now, and but I find myself spending way too much time on them, like
mm,
scripting, editing, and
yeah,
I'm like, shit. If I just talked into the camera every day, that would have probably more impact, like uncensored, uncut, not worry about like, is it well cut? Does it have the music? Um, I'm kind of refreshed by that we've been talking for 2 hours and you're not even gonna edit this damn thing. You're just gonna post it and you're not gonna check stats. You're just gonna like put it out there and maybe people will write emails about how great the conversation was. Maybe they won't, but like you're already gonna be on the next thing. And I think that's the right way to operate these days. Like where we just live in those daytime compartments,
mm.
like
Well,
just put it out and see what happens.
yeah, and this does fit a couple things nicely for me too. For one, by not editing it and trying to decide what's worth keeping and what's not, I'm not now spending another 2 or 4 hours on this podcast that I've already spent a good 2 hours with you, right?
Yeah,
So if I have to then go back and do all that, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this at the pace I've been doing it.
yeah,
And number two, I don't really feel like doing that. you know
yeah,
I don't want to do that. And the other thing is, when I look at how I consume podcasts, especially, um it might take me a week to get through a 3-hour podcast.
yeah,
And one of my favorite podcasts is Hardcore History with Dan Carlin,
yeah,
and he does like 4.5-hour podcasts, and there's like 5 parts to the series.
yeah,
And I just take my time going through it. And, like, if I'm still interested in it, I'll keep turning it back on when I get in my car next time
yeah,
and I'll listen. And if not, I'll switch to something else. And I think that happens with this too. I think there are people that will wonder how the hell I can imagine someone would want to listen to all of this.
yeah.
And there are other people that'll be sad when it's over. I think as long
I
as you
mean,
and I are engaged with each other,
that's right. Yeah,
um, and it's kind of like all the things we've been saying. Like there's somebody out there that's probably like, oh, cool, they're just talking about life and
yeah,
how to deal with
exactly.
someone in traffic, and it's not just yeah. I mean, and there's other people that might just say like, oh,
What are
like,
these guys talking about? I just
do
want
you
to
forget
know
what
the
this
latest.
podcast is called, man? Music
Yeah,
production. Like,
music
what are you
production.
talking
Yeah,
about? Hey,
yeah, man. But we're humans first, then we're music producers or whatever title you wanna,
yeah,
whatever
I
you
always
title.
think it ties in, and I always say that to. I'm sure I said it to you the first time we spoke. Like, there's stuff you want to talk about. I know you're coming out with your course and you're,
Yeah,
whatever. Great, let's get to that. But I'm happy to let this thing go anywhere it wants to go.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes that's where the magic happens, and that's where I get to know people too. Like when they're just telling me their news release, their press release. Yeah, I don't know anything about you really. You're telling me all your
yeah,
talking points, but
yeah,
once we get past that and things open up a lot more,
yeah,
that's where a lot of my
yeah,
learning happens too. Talking to you is like I've been reflecting on so many different things, not just music. It's it's,
yeah.
it's
That's
valuable.
the beautiful thing about like talking to another human, and so much inspiration, information that you can like just a different perspective, right? I'm curious. I'm sure we probably want to wrap this up. Um, but I was just curious, like, how often do you publish your podcast? Is it a weekly thing? Is it a scheduled thing?
It's roughly weekly. So, um, I kind of realize this when the end of the year shows up. So I started the podcast in March 2017, I think it was.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to March 2018, I had like about 52 episodes, which is a full year once
Wow.
per week. So I was like, all right, that's not a bad pace. And then the next year came around the next year and I've been on track. It's
Okay.
not necessarily weekly, like it doesn't come out on Fridays or anything, but
Yeah.
it averages out to that.
Okay.
September, I think I only did 3, and there were 4 weeks. And I was starting school and didn't
Yeah.
have guests booked as much, or didn't have as much to say, and working on other projects.
Yeah.
I'll make it up. I've got a bunch of ideas that I want to get to. I recently, I think you kind of mentioned like emailing earlier. I recently taught my high school students about emailing, because I would
Yeah.
get these atrocious emails. The whole message is in the subject line and it's not signed and I don't even know who sent it.
Really?
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
God. Yeah. So I want to do one about kind of like an English lesson, but for music producers, like how do you
Yeah.
email
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
and I get a lot of emails that, sometimes when I'm going through these emails, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this wasn't really sent to me. So I can just skip it. It
Exactly.
might even say, "Hi, Brian."
Yeah, but the rest is like
Yeah,
might
and
as
it's
well be
like
written. Yeah.
I can save a little time here and
Yeah.
just let this one
Yeah.
pass. Or it's
Yeah.
just like doesn't look like the person spent much effort into it.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's
Yeah.
not that
Exactly.
important.
Yeah.
Um,
And we actually have a lesson in the masterclass about that because it's huge. I mean, email is the way it's like today's telephone,
yeah, it's a
If you
first
don't know how
impression
to,
most of the time.
yeah. And if you don't know how to communicate, it's like you're wasting your time writing all these emails. The funny thing is people spend so much time on email, but paradoxically, the more time you spend making it longer and more about yourself, the less of an investment on your time and energy you're going to get because the person visually scanning their email inbox is going to see an essay. They're going to be like, oh, essay. I'm going to get to that later.
Hmm.
Is it important? No, it's not important. Because like with an essay, it's not important, right? If it's like a house burning, it's going to be like house is burning, exclamation mark in the subject line. You're going to be like, oh shit. But it's those simple things, like even the visual appearance of the email
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference. And is it going to pass the first filter of somebody's attention span, like especially a busy music producer in the industry? It's not. If
Yeah.
you write an essay, it's not gonna.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tell that to my students at school. Like when I get an essay from them, and I'm their teacher and I have to read it, if it's just a brick of words, no paragraph breaks, hardly any periods, no
It's unreadable.
capitalization, it's like, you didn't put enough care into this.
Yeah.
You didn't take this very seriously. Why should I?
Yeah.
And as your teacher, of course, that's my job. That's why I should. But if I'm anyone else in the world, I'm going to look at that and be like, what is this? Like, come on. I got
Yeah.
serious business to get to.
Yeah. There was an American author that said something like this in the letter that they wrote to somebody else. I'm sorry about the long letter, but if I had more time, I would have made it shorter.
Yeah, I think that was Lincoln. Or at
Lincoln?
least that's who
Okay.
I think it was
Yeah.
attributed to. I use that
Yeah.
quote in my classes.
Yeah.
Actually, when I do a research paper, because normally they're supposed to be like 5 to 7 pages, and I break them down. I'll make them short because
Yeah.
what happens when you assign a student a 5 to 7 page, they just focus on how the hell am I going to make that many words appear on a paper. So all the nuance, all the style, it goes out the window and it just becomes an
Fun.
art of fluffing up nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I think, that quote is great because you at first assume like something long took more time, but to condense your thoughts down, concise, to the point, using
Yeah.
brevity, and that's hard.
That's hard. Yeah. It takes time.
That's an art. And
Yeah, man. Well, let's not fluff up our interview.
yeah, right. Well, I appreciate you coming on again. It's always awesome to talk to you. We definitely
Yeah,
want
me
to
too,
send
Brian.
people
Always
to
feels
you.
human to chat with you, even though we're a bunch of dudes on the internet doing our thing.
Yeah.
I always got that vibe from you that you're human. You you'll make time just to
I'm
send
a
me an
guy.
email. That's what I appreciate. You send me emails out of the blue just to let me know that yeah, somebody mentioned something about our interview or
Mm,
whatever. I really appreciate that, and it puts you, in my mind, in a totally different place than a lot of people with platforms. You
nice.
know, which often don't make that time because they don't think it's efficient, for instance,
Mm,
or whatever. I don't know, but like Gary Vaynerchuk said, man, do things that don't scale. A 2-hour podcast, man, on a Saturday, that certainly doesn't scale.
right.
I could be instituting all sorts of processes and writing new Facebook ads that will scale. But amazingly, it's those things that don't scale, like a 2-hour conversation with somebody I resonate with, that usually brings to me more opportunities, coincidentally, that are more aligned with my values because it's the people who I resonate with
Hmm.
that resonate with the interview that come to me, and then I resonate with them. So it makes life all around better.
Mm.
Um, so let this 2-hour conversation be an example of the fact that, yeah, maybe we should make the time for something that doesn't scale necessarily,
I think
as long as
so.
you're having fun and you're engaged.
Yeah, and like, it's really always about the human connection, I think. And if you're going for a job, like they're gonna hire someone they're gonna have to see every day and deal with. And if you want someone that you want to be around, and um,
Yeah.
it matters, that stuff. And even if there's no gain in it, like I just enjoy talking to you. It's
Yeah.
just nice
Same here, man.
to have a nice
Absolutely.
conversation without the TV blaring or the phone, or
Yeah.
just it's very valuable in my
Yeah.
own growth. And
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I can say the same for me. So thanks so much, dude, for for carving out these few hours on your Saturday.
my
And
pleasure.
I
Thank
really
you.
did enjoy this conversation, man. And hope whoever was listening enjoyed it too.
Yeah, me too.
Hope you're safe
I
and
hope they
well
do.
wherever you are.
Yeah. Well, cool, Tommy. So let's get people heading over to TommyZ.com. That's Tommy, TommyZee.
Actually, if they go there, I don't know what they're gonna see.
Okay, so that go there in a second. Go ahead, making music for
I do have
brands.
that domain. Actually, I
Yeah.
do have
Well, it's got a
TommyZ.com,
nice
but
example of your work, which may be why I
yeah, but
said
it's gonna be
first.
.co.
Oh, it's .co. I'm sorry.
TommyZ.co. Yeah. TommyZ.com. I recently bought. It's been the domain was available for $2,000 for like a few years, and then suddenly I saw it available for $9, so I bought it, but I haven't done anything with it.
Hmm.
So if you want to see what I do for a living, my music production company, it's TommyZ.co. And if you want to learn more about making music for brands, start with the free training, makingmusicforbrands.com. Yeah, those 45 minutes, you're going to know, like, is this for you? Do
Hmm.
you want to learn more about it? And if you do, great, take the next step. If you don't, or if you're not sure, feel free to email me. I leave my email address there.
Yeah.
Um,
And you got
Tommy at makingmusicforbrands.com. And
and your
let's
YouTube
see.
channel's really growing and coming along nicely too, which I think is a
Yeah,
good place
it's
to send
it's like a
people.
slow churn. I'm trying to put out a video every week, although I'm not successful. So usually it's like every other week, but I'm really excited about it because I feel like this week I'm going to publish the second success story from our masterclass, and it's a really cool story, man. Like, because it's filled with uncertainty, with like ups and downs, like after having like even the way he got into the masterclass, even the way that he, I don't want to reveal too much, but it's a really cool story, and it has a really happy ending. Um, not that it ended, but like uh, basically what this student got after putting in months of hard work trying to break into our business was beyond his expectation as far as opportunity and payoff financially.
It's awesome.
And so, yeah, imagine how I felt, like, because I wanted him to succeed more than anybody because he actually put in the work. So I was like, shit, man, if he doesn't succeed, I don't know who's going to succeed.
Yeah.
Because he's got the talent, he's working his ass off. But, you know, like the universe often does, it's put a few stumbling blocks in front of him, put a few challenges. He didn't give up. And the universe said, okay, man, it's hard to resist you. Here you go. You know?
Nice.
So, yeah, so I'm going to publish that this week. So, yeah, check out the YouTube channel. I don't even know the URL for that. Tommy Z, making music for brands. It'll pop
I'll
up.
put it in the show notes. It'll be there for
thanks,
everyone
brother.
with all
Appreciate
the other
it.
links.
Appreciate it.
So
thanks
thank you
again, brother.
And thank you everyone for listening. Check out
Thanks so
Tommy's
much,
work
guys.
and have
Thanks
a great
so much,
day.
guys.
Thanks, Tommy.
All the best. Ciao.